Hello everyone. We've often come across terms like revenue expenditure, capital expenditure without knowing the meaning of both and without knowing the difference. So in this video, we will be talking about what is revenue expenditure, what is capital expenditure, and what is the difference between both. So before we start with these terms, let's discuss what is an expenditure. So basically an expenditure is an act of spending money to get any goods or any service. Anything you want to buy or any service that you want to take, if that is an expenditure, okay, that is an expenditure. So it can either be for a long-term or a short-term purpose. Expenditure is an act of spending money or incurring a liability because it can happen that you have purchased goods, say for example, purchased any machine, say for example, but you haven't made the payment. So if you haven't made the payment, what would it mean? The liability will be there. You will have an obligation to pay. So that is why expenditure is an act of either spending money or incurring a liability to take any goods or services. It can either be for a long-term purpose or for a short-term purpose. So whenever any expenditure is made for short-term purpose, we call it revenue expenditure. And whenever any expenditure is made for a long-term purpose, we call it capital expenditure. So the main thing between both is both are expenditure. In both the cases, the money is going out or it will go out in future. But revenue expenditure is it is for the current period. Means the benefit that you will get from that goods or from that services will be for a very short period. Will be for the current period. However, in case of capital expenditure, the benefit that you will get in the form of goods or services, it will be for a longer period. Fine. So and short-term period expenditure, that is revenue expenditure, they are recurring in nature. Recurring means repetitive in nature. It keeps on happening. For example, electricity bill. So if you consume electricity for a particular month, say for example March, once you are done with that consumption, you will make the payment of that expense, and then again you will consume electricity in April, and again for April you'll have to make a payment. So this is what recurring in nature, repetitive in nature. But if you purchase on AC, will you keep on buying every month? No. Once bought, it will be there for a longer period. Longer period generally say more than 1 month. More than 1 year, sorry. Okay? So, recurring in nature and non-recurring in nature. Then, see, since it is repetitive, since it is recurring, since it is for a very short period, we will show the revenue expenditure in profit and loss account. Clear? However, capital expenditure is for a longer period, for more than 1 year, and that is why it is shown as asset in the balance sheet. And revenue expenditure is shown as an expense in profit and loss account. Okay? It is operational in nature. Revenue expenditure is actually to run the day-to-day operations. However, capital expenditure is done to purchase any asset. If you remember, you must have heard this word like capex. So capital expenditure को ना प्यार से हम capex बुलाते हैं. So capital expenditure is for a long-term purpose. It is to purchase an asset. However, revenue expenditure is for a short-term purpose. It is recurring in nature. Capital expenditure is non-recurring in nature. Okay? The purpose behind capital expenditure is to generate more revenue. And the purpose behind revenue expenditure is to maintain the current revenue. Example. If you want to buy a factory, it becomes capital expenditure. If you rent a factory, it becomes revenue expenditure. Okay, so there are various other examples. Daily life examples के बारे में बात करते हैं. If you purchase a phone, capital expenditure. But if you do the recharge or a top up for the internet speed and data pack, that is what revenue expenditure. If you buy a four-wheeler, if you buy a car, capital expenditure. But the day-to-day petrol expenses, the running expenses, the maintenance and the servicing, that is what revenue expenditure. Right? And if you buy AC, capital expenditure. But the electricity charges behind that, revenue expenditure. Buy a factory, buy a machine, capital expenditure. Renting a factory, renting a machine is revenue expenditure. So this was what is the difference between capital and revenue expenditure. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. See you soon.